Maschine Masters. My name is MGTheFuture. Today we'll be doing What Would Producer Do? Today I'll be featuring a new track from Kodak Black called Transportin. This particular track is produced by C-Clip Beats. It has a sample from Isaac Hayes' Hung Up, and you hear this sample a lot, especially back in the 90s on a lot of different hip-hop projects. It's even on I Need Kamosi, Here Comes a Hot Stepper on the breakdown. But it's a pretty cool sample. The sample itself is just like a guitar, funky guitar lick. It kind of reminds you of Quincy Jones' joint, though, that Tupac used on How Do You Want It. So that'll catch you off guard. It's on two different tracks. But I'm going to go through this track real quick, show you some elements that they put together to make this. It's unusual in the fact that it's in its 90 beats per minute range, so it's more like a DJ Mustard type of bop. And the sample's pretty straight ahead. So let's play you an example of what the track sounds like pitched up, and then I'll go ahead and work on how to reconstruct it.
Gotta wait to make no moves, I be loaded. Ain't gotta wait to make them moves, I be loaded. While you watching drinking 40s, I just told it. Still that same nigga in the foreign, but it's stolen. Ryan sporty, acting sporty, can't control it. Ain't gotta wait to make them moves, I be loaded.
So that's the track. I have it pitched, and as you can hear, there's a guitar sample running. I'm gonna do the same thing with the sample itself. Let's check this out and see if we can get it aligned with ours. So this one's pretty straight ahead. They're looping that whole initial 3 bars, and as you hear in the original sample, there's like a little drum breakdown. So they ignored that part and re-looped bar number 2. So let's go ahead and take care of that. What I'm gonna do is zoom in on the beginning. I wanna Command E to split this particular clip. I'll move it back to the beginning of the main phrase. I'm gonna catch it at the end here, take that away as well. Ableton Live is dealing with time stretch and warp markers, so it's fairly on time by itself. This one's 100 beats per minute. Kodak Black's is 94, so it's real close. So the only thing I gotta do here is cut off this 4th bar where this breakdown is and get rid of it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 2. So we need 2 again. And we'll copy that over, and this should be our loop. So it's looping fairly nice. I'm gonna go ahead and highlight all of this and consolidate it, and that'll be our main part. The other part of this track was the drums. I already put this together. That's usually what I start with when I analyze a track, getting the rhythm right and the spacing. So drums is always important. Even when you're sampling like hip hop, like if you're doing like old school East Coast hip hop, if you pay attention to it, or you get a chance to analyze some of the samples of your favorite songs, you notice that a lot of producers just trace the drums with their own. Jay Dilla does this a lot. Kanye and Just Blaze do it. Alchemist especially. They'll find tones and textures to the original sample and layer them with, like, for instance, if it's a deep kick, they'll layer it with another deep kick. If it's like a rim shot, they'll layer it with a rim shot instead of a snare. Not everyone does it on every time they sample, but you'll notice a lot of the samples that sound real good are composed in that way. There's a few lo-fi producers who do this as well. Oh man, this guy does like this synthwave stuff. I think his name is Mick Jagger or Mitch Murder. Mitch Murder does this. He'll sample stuff and have this old school synth pop vibe. But when he reconstructs the tracks, he makes sure it's his virtual instruments and his drums match the era and the sample itself. So it doesn't even sound like he sampled. It's one cohesive track. It's almost like a edit more than a remix or a sample beat. So keep that in mind. Try to layer your elements up as closely as possible if you want to sell an authentic sound. But anyway, let me play the drum part for you. So that sounds pretty decent on its own. I'm gonna go ahead and enable the sample and see if it flows together. So that is the meat and potatoes of the track, which is pretty simple in itself. As far as the bass line goes, I think they have an 808 on the downbeats that's kind of punching the track, that's matched to the key of the sample that they pitched it to. So that's pretty cool. The last thing I want to show you, though, is how to add an effect to it. Their sample is a little bit more lo-fi, and also there's like this really crispy vinyl sound through it. And I thought that would be a perfect opportunity to show you guys how to use the external effect rack within Ableton Live. In this case, I'm going to use the SP404. I'm not going to resample on the machine itself. I'm just going to use it as an effects processor. And when I set this up, you'll be able to do the same thing with any gear that you have that has audio inputs and audio outputs. So that could be guitar pedals, MPCs, SP404s, even some synthesizers that allow you to run audio through as far as their distortion and filters go. I know my Evolver allows me to do that as well with the filter section. So I would recommend guitar pedals, especially like the Ibanez TS808. It's pretty good on bass. But anyway, let's show you how to do this. First things first, when you want to use an external audio effect rack in Ableton, you have to have a sound card that allows you to have multiple outputs and multiple inputs. So instead of just your stereo out for your monitors, you need an additional double output as well. So mine has 4. Has the main 1 and 2 for the speakers, and then 3 and 4 you can use for anything. And a lot of times people will route that to a mixer. Also for inputs, of course I have my microphone input, which I'm using, and I have a second one which can be a line input or guitar input. But on the back side of this box, it has 2 line outputs, which is also 3 and 4. So I have a RCA to 1/4 inch converted cables going from the SP to the sound card, and from the sound card back to the SP. Once you do that, on the SP itself, all you have to do is enable external source. Also, on most synthesizers and outboard gear, it's pretty much the same thing. They have an audio throughput. There's usually a button or mode or menu you put it in so that it's listening to whatever's being sent into it. In Ableton Live itself, you use external audio effect, and it gives you 2 options to select that input and that output. It shows you all of them, but since I know 3 and 4 on input and output is dedicated to this machine, that's all you have to select. And that's pretty much it. External source on. I want to isolate the drums by turn those off and just let the sample play by itself. So this is how it sounds clean through the box. If I turn the filter on, you'll notice it. So this particular sample has a lo-fi quality. So you just turn the lo-fi button on. And it gives you that grain effect, similar to the SP1200 filter on machine. And also I had static, and that's coming from vinyl. So you hear that better when lo-fi is turned off. So that's going to be MFX 16. And already you hear the static. This is range, frequency range. That's how loud the noise is. And this will flutter or warp the sample as it plays. So that's similar to those lo-fi plugins that I showed you in previous videos. I'll make it a little bit more crispy with the noise. The range, I can make it sound old or filtered out. Now I'm gonna play it with the drums to see if it fits right. Cool. I like it. So what I'm going to do now is resample it. So what it's going to do is take the effect or the audio processing of this box and commit it to audio within Ableton Live itself, because Ableton's listening to itself, and you can see the audio meters are still working due to the static, so you know it's live. And we'll go ahead and just arm it to record. Now I'm going to turn the listening module of the SP404 off so that static goes away. And I'm going to play the sample back and see if the static was caught in my audio recording. And it was. And the lo-fi module was caught as well. So we can go ahead and just replace this. We can go ahead and turn the external audio effect off because we don't need it unless you want to redub it and add like another effect like reverb or delay or something. Anyway, there's a lot of cool things you can do with that.
Why you watch it drinking 40s? I just told it. Still that same nigga in the foreign, but it's stolen.
Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two about this audio effect module, and that'll inspire you to use some of your outboard gear or to acquire some outboard gear so you can implement it in your Ableton Live workflow. It's really easy to set up. You just gotta make sure you have the proper sound card, proper cabling, and a module that allows you to pass audio through it. And like I said, keep a lookout on synthesizers because a lot of them do that with their filter section already, and of course guitar pedals. And shout out to Kodak Black and C-Clip Beats as well for this track. If you like, leave a comment, subscribe, like the video, share it on social media. That'll help us out greatly. And if you want to reach out to us or you have any other questions you like one-on-one, you can reach out to me on Instagram at MGTheFuture. Be sure to also follow at the Maschine Masters. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time.